Hi, this is Angela with Park Rose Permaculture. It is the 21st of April 2017 and I am standing in my front yard. There is a plum tree here, another one there. That one's an early Laxton plum, which is one of my favorites. There are currant bushes, there's a quince I'm training as a bush, lilacs, native crandall currant. And then I have some beds here that I am transitioning over slowly from annuals to a combination of annual and perennial polyculture. So I wanted to talk about one of those transitional beds today. So it is this bed right down here, and making a little fruit guild here. I had been hesitant to grow cherries in my garden for a long time because cherry trees in Oregon, they can do really well, but they're also prone to a lot of problems. One of the main ones being bird damage, and another main one being they get maggoty. And I didn't want to put in a fairly large tree, and I also didn't want to put in the work to espaliering a cherry tree. So I avoided them for a long time. And I set my sights on improved bush cherries. They were not available, sorry for the car noise, they were not available to ship to Oregon or at any nursery in Oregon for several years. They were developed in Canada. And because of our agricultural restrictions, because large parts of Oregon are used for commercial cherry production, I couldn't get them shipped here. I ended up taking a trip up to Washington State and found these improved bush cherries at a nursery up there, Sugawa's nursery in Woodland, Washington. Sorry, another car. So I wanted to talk about why I decided to put in improved bush cherries, how they differ from a tree cherry, and why I think that they're an excellent choice for a small garden, an urban garden, or any permaculture garden. So bush cherries were developed in Canada. The original one that has been on the market is the Carmine Jewel bush cherry, and it is a small cherry, considerably smaller, and not as good a ratio of pit to flesh as a tree cherry, but it was a sweet, good eating cherry. I was holding out for some of these better varieties. So there's a series of cherries that were developed that are all good eating cherries, and they are Prunus fruticosa, Prunus cerasus hybrids. So I have a Romeo and a Juliet. They get about 6 feet tall at maturity and about 6 feet wide. They are a true bush. So this is my baby in the second year. Come in here and we'll get a look. This is the Romeo. The Juliet is about 20 feet behind me. So right now it is maybe 2.5 feet tall, but it's loaded with blossoms. Last year it was a tiny little stick that I put in the ground from a 4-inch pot. So this is the Romeo cherry. It should be a dark red sweet cherry. The one behind me is Juliet, and it is more of a bright red cherry, both very good eating, and they have a much better pit to flesh ratio than the Carmine Jewel. So bush cherries, because they top out at 6 feet, they are easy to net against birds and to cover with floating row covers so they don't get maggots in them. So much easier to manage. Also 6 feet, nice shrub size that you can keep even in a small garden. They are completely festooned with these white flowers in the spring, so they're also a really nice landscape plant. They're very attractive and have a nice round shape when they're mature. You can just see it's gobs and gobs of flowers on here. So if you go down to the base of the cherry, commercial cherries or any cherries you're going to buy that are tree cherries are going to be grafted, okay? The bush cherry grows on its own rootstock, and it will sucker a little bit. So you will get suckers coming out. And if you want it to have multi-stems, multi-trunks, you can keep it that way, or you can dig your shovel in and take a division off of it. Because it grows from its own rootstock, it will grow true to form from the roots. So it's really nice. You can divide it at home, no grafting, and you can get multiple specimens. It is pretty disease hardy. It's also very hardy for cold climates and a long winter because it was developed in Canada specifically for that reason. So The only two I could get were Romeo and Juliet. There are a few others. I think there's a Valentine. There's a few others in that family that was developed. I was super stoked to find these two varieties. I have not found any place in Oregon that has them yet, and have not found any nurseries that will ship here. I even kind of begged, like, will you ship it here even though you're not supposed to ship to Oregon? Nobody would. So as of right now, Sugawa's Nursery in Woodland, Washington is the only place I found it. TSUGAWA. So that is the improved bush cherry. I will have an update later in the year to show you what the actual cherries look like. Slightly smaller than a tree cherry, but they're supposed to be really sweet and tasty, which is great because my kids love cherries. And hopefully I'll get these row covers over as soon as the fruit is set and we won't have any issues with maggots. Yeah, so if you enjoyed this video, please click the like button and subscribe, and I'll be back later this week with another one. Thanks.